Well, hello, 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 and welcome back to another episode of the Summer Spotlight 2020. My name is Gayle Nicholson, and I am so glad to see you again today. Thanks for joining us. Today, I have the opportunity to speak with a man that is mind blowing to me. As he said himself to me just a few minutes ago, he's lived a few lifetimes in this one, and it has taken him from being a military veteran, an IT specialist, a yogi, to where he is now. Rishi Eric Infanti, a transformational mindset and marketing coach with the Mela Academy. So, thank you so much for joining us today, Rishi Eric. How are you?
Very, very good. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this time with you.
It's my pleasure to have you. First
Thank
and foremost, before we get into talking about all of the many, many things that you've done and what you're planning to do, would you please, for this silly little blonde, explain what the preamble Rishi means?
Okay. So I studied with a lineage. His name is Osho. So he's considered, a radical mystic from India. And he has brought to our planet just a wide plethora of wisdom and a lot of methodology, a lot of techniques around meditation. And he's brought a lot of clarity in a lot of people's lives. So I studied with someone for and it was the my master's degree in Ayurvedic science. So I studied with someone who worked directly for him for decades. And this wasn't an airy fairy person. She had a doctorate degree in education. She is American and just simply found him and then traveled to India to work for him. And then when that era of her life was complete, she came back to the United States. She created her own institute, and I studied with her for some time. Meanwhile, doing so, you earn a name after a while. So Osho's people gave me my name Rishi, and it means seer.
Very nice. Very
Yeah,
nice. I like that. I like that a lot. You are a Marine Corps veteran, a seven-time author. Um, Tell me a little bit. First of all, thank you for writing that check and joining the Marine Corps. Um, Tell me a little bit about your experience there. Were you deployed? Where did you serve? And so on.
yep. So my entire tour was in Quantico, Virginia, which was great. I loved it there. Um, and what I did there primarily was an audio visual job. And then I went to a private college, university at night to study IT, computers. And then the Marine Corps saw that and they said, okay, you're gonna support us in helping us run this computer floor. So I did that as well. It was a great, great time. And then all of a sudden, the first Desert Storm, war came, and then the base shut down. We were on riot control, and we were doing enormous amounts of training and preparation for whatever that was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Friends of mine to the left and the right of me did go. They got deployed. I didn't. I stayed back. But regardless, we were training intently for quite some time. And then then whatever happened, and I just got back into running the IT, and then my time for that tour came up in 1992, and then I simply got out, like a lot of us do.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, when you discharged from the Marines, what was your next step? Did you go back to college? Did you just begin your training with the more spiritual meditation and yoga practice?
Right. So
How
not
did that
yet.
go? Not
Yeah,
yet.
not yet,
Okay.
not yet, not yet. So I had a wonderful career in IT for a long time, 20 plus years. I really
Nice.
enjoyed it. There was no issues with that whatsoever. I had a great time. I was working normal job in IT. I was also teaching at seven different universities and technical colleges, and I also consulted for Fortune 15 500 companies. So that career was wonderful. But of course, I did continue my education in addition to that. So I went to school at night and just continued onward. Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. So, what did make the transition for you from a great job that you loved in
Hmm.
IT to
Yep.
doing what you're doing now?
Yep. So great question, and here we go. So I woke up one day and I'm out walking my dog, and I couldn't I couldn't walk him, so I couldn't move. So all of a sudden the body started to dramatically shut down. The physical pains were traumatic, and I was confused. I had no idea what was going on. So 8 MDs later, no answers throughout pretty much a whole year. And they couldn't figure out why I was exhausted, why I couldn't move, why my joints and muscles were hurting so dramatically. Everything was starting to just shut down in my body, as well as the brain. The mind wasn't able to focus, and like a brain fog
Mm-hmm.
kind of set in, and everything just really, really slowed down for me. So I had a client who was doing a website for, and he was a naturopathic physician, and
Okay.
he looked at me in a meeting one day. He says, "What's wrong with you?" And I said to him, "I was hoping you can tell me." So he goes, "Come to the office and I'll diagnose you." In 45 minutes of a consult with a naturopathic physician, he says, "Well, you have Lyme disease." I'm like, "Okay, what's that?" Right. So, and he says, "It's late stage. It's really too late to do anything, but we'll give it a go." And he goes, "You also have chronic fatigue, immune deficiency." And I got later diagnosed with mercury poisoning, fibromyalgia, as well as hypothyroidism. So everything really did shut down, and everything did compound over time,
Yeah, I'm
from a deer
blown
tick.
away by that list. How are
Yeah.
you not wrapped up in a cocoon somewhere?
um, it was a very challenging decade, I would say, mid 30s onward. And just to pull myself out of that, um, I searched everywhere for answers. And, Western medicine just ran out of answers for syndromes and, you know, symptoms that chronic fatigue or Lyme would bring about. So, the medications weren't really doing the trick. So I had to go essentially what I call out east. I didn't travel out east initially, but I looked out east for answers, and medical qigong and yoga and breath work and meditation. That's when I found all of that, and those were the answers that got me back to health, as well as physical movement. So I kickboxed my way to health, in other words. So
That's awesome stuff. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Now, I imagine that did take a bit of time and a process. How long would you say that it took between finding the things that could help you and when you started feeling like, oh, I feel better now?
Yeah, yeah. So some things were initially immediate. Acupuncture is a very, very good example of that. So, during and after an acupuncture treatment, feel great.
Hmm.
But for the other things, in regards to what you're saying, it's a practice, and it took a number of years to really start to feel normal or healthy again,
Hmm.
right? And then of course a brand new you is created out of that at the same time. So your perspective on life is entirely different. Your mindset is a little bit different.
Yeah.
So you start to shape shift how you see the world and how you see yourself inside of it.
Nice. And now
Yeah.
you say, rightly so, it's a practice. If you were to discontinue doing those things, would you, all of your symptoms come back like a waterfall?
Yeah, I don't believe they would, but I'm not going to even entertain that thought of not having my practice, because in part it's my peace, in part it's my development, and it's in part what I teach. So I'm gonna. It's a lifestyle at this point. It's not just something you go do on a calendar or a checklist.
Right, right.
Yeah. So
It's not.
I meditate because it evolves me and it expands consciousness, not because it is my healing modality.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
That's an excellent perspective. So, what are you bringing to the world today? How are you serving life?
Yep. So we've all been kind of what I call hijacked. And COVID kind of took over the planet, and it took over the planet in waves. So the first wave was the actual crisis of health, and then the next wave really it's how we are seeing it. And a lot of people are in stagnation, or they are in fear, or they are living in such a way that is not their norm. And so what I've done, because I've been, personally affected by COVID, um, being laid out by it literally over a couple of months,
Mm-hmm.
um, had that horrible, horrible flu, to the point your skin hurt and I couldn't sit up and I couldn't breathe. So here I am off into the hospital, believing that I wasn't going to go home from that experience.
That's
And
terrifying.
it's terrifying. Yeah. And even myself, Marine Corps veteran, I'm not afraid of anything. But that was a terrifying set of moments. And, it's no fun, going through that experience and preparing your family for what may happen, and looking at the doorway of that experience. And so the hospital did everything that they can possibly do, what they know how to do, and I'm grateful for those people. True heroes have to really face this head on, right?
Yeah.
And then the moment came for, okay, there's nothing left the hospital can do, so we're going to discharge you. And I'm like, oh boy, I'm still feeling like, death is here,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to go home. And so, okay, now what do you do is the question, right? So I immediately, and your practice is gone. You can't move. Everything hurts. You can't get up to go to the restroom like a normal human, right? Let alone eat and function. So, my mindfulness practice withered away. My meditation practice was non-existent, right? All I was able to do was count my breath. That is it. There's nothing left to do for days on end, hours on end. Sleeping wasn't happening.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a battle. It was a real battle. And so gradually, very gradually, and trust me, I had enormous amounts of support. All of my spiritual people came and were by my side, literally holding my hand, literally, right? So
I hate
coaching
to
me, guiding
imagine
me
if they
through.
hadn't been.
I don't even want to imagine that. I really don't, right? So don't even want to go there. I had a lot of support and a lot of help. People really showing up for me, which was remarkable. And it says a lot about friendship, and it says a lot about love,
Yeah.
right? And an example I had, my very good friend of mine. He's a doctor. He's a physician. He's probably the best physician I've ever had in my life from Western View. Every day he's checking in on me, every single day. And of course, he couldn't diagnose or treat, but he kept on asking a lot of questions. And when it came time to go to the hospital, he's like, "You need to go." He was begging me to go to the hospital. So,
Mm-hmm.
but then my spiritual people also, they just literally showed up for me, right?
That's
And
beautiful.
they supported me through this
Mm-hmm.
quite remarkably well. And so I just had to breathe. And then so very, very gradually, I started to breathe and breathe more. I'm a yogi, advanced level, so I know what to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know how to do it. I just didn't have the strength in the very beginning. And so as the strength came very slowly, I started to increase my capacity to do the breath work. And that's what shifted this. I can't clinically say anything, but what I can say with confidence is the breath work is what brought me through this. And
Well,
so,
and
yeah, go ahead, please.
honestly, and I appreciate the fact that, clinically you can't say anything because there's all these rules about what you can say and what you can infer and what you can promise.
Mm-hmm.
But it does stand to reason, literally, that if that illness is what's causing, like your bronchial tubes are hurting and it's hard for you to breathe,
Mm-hmm.
then just simply breathing consciously, intentionally, and counting those breaths wouldn't it kind of be like PT for your lungs?
We can certainly say that, but a human being without my background
Mm-hmm.
isn't going to know this at all. No one in the hospital said, "Oh, do some deep breathing." Not at all, not once. They gave me an inhaler instead. And not once did a pulmonologist come to the room and say, "Hey, how's it going? And here's some advice." Not once, right? So, um, in retrospect, that's a little shocking, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't want to go home and continue on that inhaler. I don't know what's in that thing, right? So,
Right.
did it help me in the immediate need? It did for the day and a half I used it, and then I just let that bypass and started to do my own work. I hear what you're saying, and I agree with your saying. it makes sense. Well,
Mm-hmm.
the thing is a virus that is going to go into a pulmonary attack. It's going to go into your lungs and start to wreak havoc. Um, my oxygen levels were depleted, and that's why I couldn't sit up, let alone walk around.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it makes sense. Well, let's do some breathing to bring the fix. Well, most human beings probably won't have that wherewithal to to do that, let alone how,
Right.
right? How to, as you say, consciously breathe. There's a lot of technique involved, although it's fairly simple. But when you're feeling that sick,
Mm-hmm.
that's the last thing you want to do is breathe consciously, really.
Yeah.
You don't want to do anything but get better and hope. That's it, right? And this thing brings upon a darkness that is powerful, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to lay in bed and say, okay, I'm going to do my breath work now, that's not in people's minds, not at all, right?
No.
So gratefully, I know the power of the breath, and so that's what I did. I just simply worked that practice dramatically.
That's phenomenal. Good job.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, and so literally a program came out of that called Breath Mastery. So it's a 4 week training, and it's multi-tiered. So it's tiered in three ways. Is it geared to people to help their anxiety around everything that's happening in life? Absolutely, it is. So, can it bring a sense of calm and harmony? Absolutely, it can. But it's also geared towards people who also want to find, and here's the buzzword in our world right now, a pivot to their work. So any yoga teacher, any spiritual leader or healer
Mm-hmm.
who wants to learn breath work at a mastery level, so they can help their clients out, that's the next level. That's the next tier that's inside this program. So how do you actually practice it well enough to master it, hone that craft and embody it, and
Mm-hmm.
then give it to others? And then how do you put a package around that? How do you define who this is for you, as a teacher or as a healer? And then how do you create an offer? And then how do you bring that to market? So that's the third layer of this program.
Phenomenal. I love that. So it is for anybody and specifically yogi teachers that want to take this modality and add that to their toolbox.
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. I love
Yeah,
it. I love it.
yeah.
So tell us a little bit about it. Like, well, just a little bit more specifically than just the different tiers. What kind of things are you going to take them through?
Yep. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to learn how to breathe. We're going to learn how to breathe. I love how you word it, consciously. So we're going to go through a variety of techniques to, how do we breathe to lower the anxiety, as an example, right? So that's one thing. How do we breathe to decrease insomnia, right? Again, I can't say anything clinically, but I know the power of this breath. I use it
Mm-hmm.
myself. I've taught it for a number of years. Um, and then we'll go through a variety of techniques to raise vibration, to raise energy, to feel better, to feel more vibrant, to feel alive, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you have a groggy morning, how do you deal with that using breath work, conscious breathing, as you say. So and then we're going to go into co-teaching. So I'm going to teach people how to teach this breath, right? So and how to effectively give this to their clients who are facing the same struggles that we all are.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next thing is how we're going to package that. So how do you build an offer around breath work, right? So how can you teach people over Zoom, as an example, is the big thing right now. So whether you're doing public classes or you're teaching yoga, you're going to integrate breath work into it, or you have a number of people in your world who are dealing with issues and they need to raise energy or decrease anxiety. How do we build a package around that, right? So we will go into all these processes over a month.
That's phenomenal. I like it.
Yeah.
Um, you've got a couple of other challenges we were talking about before we went live this morning that you're
Mm-hmm.
doing some challenges. Now, you've got a number of them that you've done in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about the one for the Breakthrough Tech Mindset mini course?
Yeah, this is in development, and this is going to be a great tool for a lot of people. So a lot of my fellow yoga teachers and a lot of spiritual healers and leaders are going to love this thing because we're forced to pivot, right? We're not
Right.
inside classrooms as much, and we're trying to figure out what to do. And a lot of my peers don't have 20 plus years of IT background that I do. They just don't have it, right? And for many of my fellow yogis and spiritual leaders, tech is a barrier, right? Tech is a
Well, there
huge
is
barrier for a
there
lot of
is
people.
things to be said about wizards and tech.
Yeah. So and it should not and shall not be a barrier if you choose it not to be. So what I did is it's in development, but I'm putting together a 28-day challenge, and this isn't one of the 5-day free ones.
Okay.
This is a paid for one. It's not expensive, it's going to be under $50. So but for under $50, Lord, you can get your whole business put online. So I'll be teaching people how to overcome that barrier of tech and exactly what to do to define your avatar, define your audience, hone in on your gifts and what your offerings are going to be, and then how to put that offering into a package that makes sense. And then from that packaging, okay, well, we got to put it out to the world. How do we do that, right?
Yeah.
So how do you get into a lead page? How do you put a sales page together? How do you put an info page together? How do you receive payments, right? How to deal with camera shyness. Some people just don't want to be on camera. Remarkable teachers, but they don't want to be on camera. Well, if you want to continue teaching, you're going to be,
Yeah.
right? You're going to be on camera.
Yeah.
So anything and everything tech related is going to be inside that 28-day challenge. So every day, it's going to be a micro teaching every single day. And I'm going to step people through literally a blueprint of how to get themselves online.
That sounds incredible. I almost wish that I'd had you on earlier, because when we were doing the Corona Spotlight, it was much more geared to welcome to the internet. You don't know, I'm going to
Right,
introduce you to people, right?
right,
And
right, right.
yeah, so I can't wait until this one is ready to launch, because there are so many people out here that is a gift right there.
Yep,
And to
absolutely.
have a price point like you've got on it, under $50, that is exactly what the world needs right this moment.
Yep, absolutely. And there's a whole, rebranding of Mela Academy that's happening around this with some remarkable coaches. So I'm blessed to have them on my side.
Phenomenal. Excellent. All right. So, what's next for you? Is it, launching the breakthrough tech mindset, or are you going to be doing a different, maybe free 5-day challenge coming up?
Yep. So good question. So the tech thing is going to be one thing, and that's one whole packaging container that's going to be happening a little bit down the road. But right now, the breath program is going to be happening, and what I want to do is give people a sampling. So I am going to offer in this coming month a 5-day challenge around everything to do with the breathing, right? So people want to get to know me. People want to sample what this is. I'm going to be offering one of those free 5-day challenges to do that. So um, that's going to be coming out in this next month. So August is going to be happening for that.
Awesome. Awesome
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. So I'm
And
excited to do that.
I am too, actually. I can't wait to see it. We also have on the ticker and in the description a link to your page for the 4-week breath mastery program.
Yep.
So I encourage people, click on that link, reach out now, get more familiar with it, so that you're following Eric and on Facebook, and possibly even on his website. Signing up for his list, so that when this stuff happens, you are ready to take action on it, because this is probably one of the most valuable beginner content packages that I've seen among all of the people that I've interviewed that are helping others learn the ways of the web, so to speak. And I think that it's going to be very, very helpful for a lot of our audience. So thank you so much for offering that.
My pleasure. Really. Thank you. My
Absolutely.
pleasure.
Do you have any final thoughts for us today before we go?
Yep. And you said it earlier. And you asked me the question, what would happen if you didn't go into your practices? You know, And so the final thought that I would have for you and for anyone right now is practice your practices, because it's going to bring you balance, it's going to bring you harmony, it's going to bring you a state of mind where you can function, right?
Yeah.
And pay closer attention as to your proprioceptive,
What is
meaning,
that?
yeah, let's real quick here. Pay attention to what your input is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So put some positive in your eyes and put some positive in your ears. Yep.
That's
So
excellent, excellent advice. Thank you once again, Rishi Eric, for being
my
with us today. Thank you
thank you.
so much for what you're providing to the planet with who you are and how you be.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, Facebook, thank you so much for tuning in once again. We'll have a great day and we'll see you soon. Bye. When you opal energy work makes that recovery progress so much faster. That recovery is possible. You do not have to live as a victim until your last days. You have unbelievable strength, and I know that because you're still here. Do you want to create something completely unrecognizable with your life? I can show you how.